Welcome to Southern Fried Baseball, brought to you by College Baseball Central, bringing you 90 feet closer to the greatest show on dirt. Here are your hosts.
Welcome in, college baseball fans. You may notice that it is just me today. Nick is out working, out scouting the next Shohei Ohtani or next college athlete, if you will. So you got me on week 3 to talk through everything that happened in the SEC. It was an exciting weekend. 7 of the 8 series were sweeps, with the one split being LSU, who had a gentleman's sweep, losing on Friday before rallying back Saturday and Sunday. Let's start with that game that we saw Thursday. The Oklahoma Sooners traveled to Austin to take on the Texas Longhorns. OU had won their first 2 series, including a road win at LSU the week before. They took Tuesday off while Texas got absolutely splattered against a really, really kind of bad Houston team. So it seemed like everything was kind of trending towards OU to win this series. And what happened was everything that, quote unquote, had been going bad for Texas immediately clicked. Adrian Rodriguez, who has since had a few injuries, he's going to be missing the next 3 weeks. He had an absolutely monster weekend. Ethan Mendoza, who I thought he had been taking quality at-bats, and the numbers really weren't matching the at-bats that he was taking. He absolutely broke out. Tinney absolutely broke out. Friday night, it was a run roll victory, 14-0. Thursday. Then Friday, they turn around. They get 1 in the 9th with a Temo hit that scores Mendoza, and then get the walk-off, and they absolutely go crazy. They go and tear down the Yeti Yard, if you will. One of the best college baseball moments of the year so far. And then on Saturday, they immediately turn around and do the exact same thing. They get a walk-off home run. They come back from 4 runs instead of 3. And, this Texas team, everything that we talked about, bullpen, the leading ABs, for one weekend, it was the complete opposite. I mean, they were a fantastic, fantastic team. This is about as close to A-plus weekend as I think that you're going to get in college baseball. They swept a top 5 team on the road and looked really, really good doing it. It was Cozart and Crossland out of that bullpen that were absolutely nails. Harrison and Volantis were all right. Volantis, by his standards, was off. Usually he goes out there and just shoves. OU was able to tag him kind of early. But again, they really couldn't take advantage of the bullpen behind him. Jackson Cleveland got squeezed a little bit, but you went back and rewatched it, and he actually didn't get squeezed. He was just missing. And then on Sunday, just when you thought OU was out of bullets, they get some phenomenal bullpen performances. Before ultimately Texas kind of went there. Dylan Volantis went 5 1/3, 4 runs, 4 hits, team high 4 runs allowed. Crossland behind him, 2 1/3, 0 runs, 3 hits. Then Hayden LeFew, 16 pitches, 6 outs. So they were really, really efficient behind him. Caden Leon pitched twice. Jason Bodine pitched twice. LJ Merciless on Thursday looked just honestly tired. Texas was getting into a lot of 2 strikeouts, and credit kind of chipping away, having high quality at bats, but he ultimately just wasn't finishing off hitters the way that he was the week before. They sped him up for that LSU series since it was a Thursday, Friday, Saturday. He ended up pitching on Friday. They sped him up again. He pitches on Thursday, so that's really what it came for me. I think OU is going to be fine. Obviously, this is a nightmare weekend, and it's a nightmare weekend against a rival. But at the end of the day, they're sitting at 2-4 in road games in a back-to-back. Teams have historically really, really struggled in these back-to-back road games in the SEC. I think the stat last year was there wasn't a single team that won a road back-to-back. Kentucky didn't win their road back-to-back at LSU. So I think if you're OU, you really just have to flush it. But, Texas, obviously the big story coming out today is that Adrian Rodriguez had some stents in his hand. They're going in to kind of clean up some of that surgery. I expect the way that his surgery last year went and how quickly he returned, how his surgery went in the fall went and how quickly that he returned, that he'll probably take this weekend off. But then when they get ready to go to Texas A&M, I think he'll be in there. I think while they have him out, it'll be really interesting what they do. What's likely going to happen is they're going to move Casey Borba back to third, and then kind of platoon at first base. You might see Livingstone. You might see some of those Texas catchers. But outside of that, if I was Jim Slosnick, I would move Temo to third or short, and then have either Duplantier or Livingstone Livingston play third base and leave Borba at first. I mean, Borba's been playing Gold Glove level at first base. He's been an all SEC type first baseman. I'd say why mess up that mojo by trying to bring in somebody else. But again, Jim Slosser gets paid the big bucks to try and figure this out. So it'll be interesting to see which way he kind of goes. Grades, OU, it's a C minus. Yes, you got swept by your rival. Yes, you lost 3 straight and you got swept on the road. But again, you're really only supposed to win 1 game on the road. They came up a little bit short. They did win 2 of 3 at LSU the week before, so it's not as bad as it could have been. And then for the Texas Longhorns, A plus all around. I think Texas is about to run away with the SEC again for the second year in a row. Obviously, last year the Spencer injury, and they did kind of run out of gas after that A&M series. But it'll be really interesting because, again, I don't see how you beat this Texas team. Like, I really don't see how you beat them in a series. Volantis pitches off and the bullpen's nails behind him. The lineup, it's like, okay, maybe you can get to them in early because they're not going to do anything in the 7th or 8th inning. They absolutely explode in the 7th or 8th inning and got clutch hit after clutch hit after clutch hit. Hopefully this isn't the peak for this Texas Longhorns team. They're in kind of that group where they can win the national championship. They're one of those 3 teams that are right at the top. Just hopefully they don't run out of gas this year. Hopefully they don't have any pitching injuries like they had last year. Rigger seems absolutely good to go. He was the SEC pitcher of the week. It seems like it's a back and forth between him and Volantis. And then Luke Harrison on that Saturday role, quote unquote, has just been absolutely lights out too as well. I mean, there's really not a lot to complain about if you're the Texas Longhorns, but it's week in, week out. You got to show it every single weekend. Next up was the SEC game that I was actually at on Friday night. The LSU Tigers take 2 of 3 from the Kentucky Wildcats. Friday night was a really kind of pitched, I think, all right away. He did walk a lot of guys early, and Kentucky kind of punished him. But I will say this, Kentucky really didn't punish LSU early in that game, in the middle innings of that game, as Cowan kind of escaped a little bit and pitched into the 5th. So for a TBA type of weekend that LSU was going to have, they really did, I think, a tremendous job staying in it. Obviously, they ended up dropping that game on Friday night, but they turn around Saturday. They pitch a really, really great game from William Schmidt, and it kind of looks like they're about to get rolling again. And then they give up a 7-0 goose egg, and everybody starts to kind of freak out a little bit. Everybody's like, this LSU team is broken. And what do? They turn around and win 7-10. They actually had the run on base when it happened. They had a curfew too that kind of started to get into play a little bit. But Saturday and Sunday for LSU, I mean, if they can get this, and this is who they kind of figure it out against, I mean, this is a team that we kind of saw preseason. Dardar had a tremendous weekend. He was SEC Player of the Week honors. Cerna behind the plate has really kind of solidified that role. York, that kind of chippiness and fireness, he's kind of gotten that a little bit under control in like a good way. And then the bullpen, at least for one day, kind of figured it out. I know that they gave up double-digit runs, but they shut out that William Schmidt start. Guidry, I think, was just a weird kind of start for there. So I think Sunday is going to be TBA. I remember back in 2024 when it was kind of TBA, Dutton was good at times for him, but I think that's just going to kind of be a revolving door for LSU in that Sunday role until they kind of get Cooper Moore back, which, again, there's a lot of SEC teams that we'll talk about that'll kind of be that revolving door, if you will. But so it's not really too much cause of concern. But again, Dardar bat flip of bat flips as he clears the diamond deck. Everybody's going to say that it was excessive or this or that. I kind of loved it. I truly did. For as bad of a season as it's been for Dardar, for as much as he kind of works his ass off in the results not kind of showing up through batting average, just to kind of see all the raw emotion just when that bat gets flipped. You saw a kid that has been struggling for last month. You saw a kid that has seen what people have been saying in the media about him for the last month. And, for one AB, the kid could kind of be a kid and celebrate himself with just a dominant hit. They moved Stanfield up into the leadoff spot too on Sunday. I thought that was a really kind of interesting take, is I think Jay Johnson's still kind of trying to critique and tweak this lineup, if you will. They went Stanfield, Brown, Cerner, Curiel, York, Pearson, Milam hit down there. He went 1 for 4, Dardar, Simpson, and then Braun. It's an interesting lineup. It really is. Stanfield is kind of the most traditional leadoff spot. LSU kind of really hasn't had that since Curiel kind of moved into the 4 hole. It's weird because Curriell doesn't feel like a 4-hole hitter, but getting him on base right before York kind of feels like a 2-3-4 type of situation with Curriell, York, and Pearson. But York and Pearson, I think, are a little bit too boom bust. Obviously, Pearson went 4 for 4 on Saturday or on Sunday until it kind of locked down that third base role. But so they're not really, they're too boom bust to be a 3-4 hole hitter. So having Curriell as a 4-5, almost like a second leadoff, if you will, is kind of interesting. Obviously, Caraway found himself out of the lineup with kind of Dardar hitting the way that he has. Obviously, I don't think that that's going to change. But again, I didn't think the Aaron Beatty thing was going to last. And it kind of feels like that's what it's going to be going forward. Cerna did go 0 for 4 on Sunday. But I think the pitching staff is it's interesting because this is something that's really hard to quantify and only kind of see it at times with other stats. What Aaron Beatty does behind the plate versus Cerna, if they're getting the strike stolen that Aaron Beatty was doing, if they're framing the way that Aaron Beatty is doing. But Cerna did do a good job kind of controlling the running game, if you will. He did a good job kind of settling down the pitchers, which is, I think, a really underrated thing. But it'll be interesting when York kind of goes through his scoff, because, again, he's so boom bust. If Pearson kind of goes through a scoff, they get Caraway. If they get Aaron Beatty back into the lineup, again, I think it's all up in the air right now if you're LSU. They do go up to Tennessee, who really hasn't had the best weekends too either. So that one's kind of going to be the disappointment bowl, where the winner of that series is going to feel really, really good, as that'll be back-to-back SEC series wins if LSU wins it. Tennessee wins it, they'll have won both their SEC home wins, which is, again, what you're supposed to do. But it'll just be a really interesting weekend to kind of track LSU, Tennessee. Then for Kentucky, they have done what they have supposed to do, to start the season. They swept at home against Alabama. They lost on the road last week to Ole Miss. They lost this weekend to LSU. For as bad and as boo-hoo and sky is falling if you're Kentucky, 2-4 in back-to-back SEC road series isn't like anything to kind of hang your head about. They get Bell back to play short. I thought that he played a really, really good defensive shortstop. They did some kind of weird Kentucky things on the base paths again. But the Kentucky that I saw Friday night, of them desperate to score runs, the bullpen being just good enough, I didn't really see that Saturday or Sunday. I think that there's a lot of bullpen issues, but again, there's a lot of SEC teams that have a lot of bullpen issues behind them. I mean, like I said, LSU doesn't really have a Sunday guy. Vandy won their first Sunday game all year. If they can kind of get a little bit more out of Cleaver, and they can get a little bit more out of Nate Harris, as they can get longer out-ins, I think that they'll be fine. I mean, they have Jelkin, Harris, and Cleaver. Cleaver's obviously not pitching to the level that he was last year. You have to feel like, since he did that for an entire year, that it's going to click, and the Cleaver that we saw last year is going to come out. So if you're Kentucky, don't hit the panic button yet. You're still kind of getting healthy, if you will. I thought Tyler Bell looked really, really good. I know that he didn't have a ton of hits this weekend. Still working his way back. But, I mean, he played really, really great in the field. Obviously, they got to figure out a few things kind of down at the bottom of the orders. It feels like the bottom of that Kentucky order's just a slight bit of an abyss. They left a lot of guys on Saturday. They lost a lot of guys out on Sunday. So they can start getting that clutch hitting, that desperation to score runs that we've seen from Kentucky. They're going to be fine. Again, they get Jelkin too. So, I mean, they're going to feel really good about Saturday or Fridays going forward. Obviously, Cleaver is another guy. I mentioned Nate Harris. Once Kentucky kind of gets rolling too, I think that they're still a solid team. My outlook for them is, if they can host a regional, I mean, that's an absolutely dangerous thing, because Kentucky at home is a lot different than Kentucky on the road. But again, they have to figure out a lot of stuff. And, they're kind of in that big group of SEC teams for me of, they could figure it out. Yeah, they could absolutely crash and burn. I want to see a few more sample sizes, because, again, they're the only team that's beat Alabama in the SEC. I think that that's kind of something to hang your hat on. They also went 2-4 in road games. I didn't really think Ole Miss was really that good, as we can kind of talk about it with Mississippi State here in a little bit. But, again, they got to kind of get some stuff figured out. They do sit a little bit behind. They're getting back up to KPP. So I think just kind of give me a week on Kentucky, and I'll have a more kind of clear vision on what they are. Let's move on to the Arkansas series, as they go up to Florida and get swept at Baum. 9-4 Friday, 7-4 Saturday, 7-6 Sunday. Florida obviously brought Cooper Walls out of the bullpen on Saturday. And then Sunday they threw their midweek guy, who has been really, really impressive as they get this. Andrew kind of told it to me on Thursday when the graphic came out that, it wasn't that Cooper Walls did a bad job. It was just that that Kevin O'Sullivan had kind of had his hand pressed with what went down on Sunday. Sorry, I'm just getting his name pulled up. Russell Sandiford. I mean, I think he pitched phenomenal in his first SEC start. 5 2/3, 3 runs. Those really did kind of come later in the game too, as well. They did have one in the first, one in the fourth, but on Sunday, just the ability for for Florida to kind of push back. Obviously Sear gets that one going. Arkansas turns around and scores again. Then Sear gets another one in the third. Arkansas turns around in the fourth. Immediately after that, that was when Florida kind of really put that game out of reach. They have a 3-run fifth. Arkansas chips away in the 6th and 7th. Curlin turns around in the 8th and really kind of ends it. This was just a great, great Florida win. And Florida continues to be the most mind-boggling team ever. But it's very, very predictable when they're bad. I've mentioned it time and time again how much Florida kicks the ball around. Again, they had 2 errors on Sunday, had 3 errors on Friday. It's one of those ones where they just have to figure out the defense. I think that's the biggest Achilles heel for this team. The bullpen, I think, is going to be fine. You get Liam Peterson, you get A.M. Key. Russ on Sunday has been going really, really good. It was just for me, and this is kind of a good transition into Arkansas. It was just not a good weekend. They didn't do a good job punishing Florida. Liam Peterson, I'll read the stats off here. 7 strikeouts, 6 walks in 4 innings through 91 pitches. 6 walks in 4 innings, and you can't get 1 run off of the guy. That's you just squandering at-bat after at-bat after at-bat, having selfish at-bats, not putting the ball in play, not doing a job, trying to do too much. Like I mentioned, they had 6 errors in 2 games, and Florida wins. Arkansas really needs to figure out its identity as a hitting team, because it's going to be a long, long season if you have selfish at-bats like they have had. And I'm sure everybody on Twitter is screaming for Nate Thompson's head. Nate Thompson's not the one that's going up there and striking out with runners on base in less than 2 outs. Like, he's putting together phenomenal scouting reports on these pitchers, and the hitters are not just going out there and executing. Like, I don't know how that's on Nate Thompson that Arkansas just compounds selfish at-bats after selfish at-bats after selfish at-bats. I mean, look at this. I'll read this off. They struck out 16 times Friday. They strike out 11 times on Saturday. Sunday, they strike out 10 more. Again, these are not like, obviously Liam Peterson's got strikeout stuff, but the bullpen hasn't been striking out people. They really need to do a good job, because this team is not deep enough lineup-wise and is not powerful enough lineup-wise to strike out as much as they do. Like, you go down the list of these guys. TJ Pompey's a strikeout king. Cam Kojul kind of strikes out. He's kind of their quote-unquote power threat. Aloy and Souza, they're power threats, but they strike out a ton. I think that's what Arkansas really has to kind of figure out in its next few weeks, is the strikeout numbers. Obviously, they have time to figure it out. And just when you think Arkansas is kind of in this lull, but it's going to be a really interesting series down at Plainsman, because again, Arkansas has lost 4 straight in the SEC. Auburn's lost 5 straight in the SEC. And these are teams coming into SEC play, even after the first week of SEC play, that were consensus top 10 teams. And this is one of those ones that's the loser of this series might be out of the hunt for hosting already through 4 weeks of the year, just because, some of these teams are starting to stack up wins. With all these sweeps, that's the thing that Arkansas really needed to figure out, was they needed a way to steal one. And ultimately they didn't do it. Obviously, grading wise, Florida, you get a road sweep. You kick the ball around from being kind of an A+. So I give them an A-. Arkansas, it's an F in every sense of the word. Florida gave you numerous times to kind of get back into the series, steal games. And credit to Florida for kind of turning around when they thought Arkansas was going to get back in the game and allowing more runs. But again, the bullpen's got to be a little bit better. For as good as this bullpen is talent-wise, I didn't think that they really showed it with how much Florida scored late. But again, it's a long series, long season. This might be one that Arkansas kind of forgot, but they're going to themselves that they didn't steal one. Let's move on to another sweep. Again, we've already gone through all these other ones. The Ole Miss Rebels hosted the Mississippi State Bulldogs. And in typical Ole Miss against Mississippi State fashion, they got swept. Friday, as I'm sure I'm buffering a little bit. They were games Friday night, and then Saturday they turned on and play. And then Sunday they 6-1 Saturday. I don't want to be reading wrong numbers, so just give me a second. Yeah, 5-4 on Friday as they get the big hit late from Sean James. Saturday 6-1, Sunday 7-1. I watched every pitch of that Sunday game, and Ole Miss just didn't really look like they wanted to be there. The fans were really, really dead on Sunday, and for good reason. I mean, they lost 2 straight to your heated rival. Every single coach has a winning record against Mike Bianco. I think they've won 29 of the last 39 games, period. They have won 9 of the last 10 series. I mean, if the only positive you're going to take away if you're Ole Miss is that you can kind of check off Mississippi State and know that you don't have to play them again, barring, an SEC tournament thing. But again, most of the time your fates are kind of sealed in that. Much like it seems like Tennessee the last 2 years, the boogeyman has been the Vols. Much like Texas was the boogeyman to Texas A&M, it feels like Mississippi State is just the boogeyman to Ole Miss. I mean, Friday night, they pitch off. They don't speed up Valanciunas. They don't speed up the side. They go with kind of a midweek guy who had given up a ton of walks. You're pitching hit. You feel really got it. And what do they do? Charlie Foster goes out there 2/3, 1 run ball, 2 hits, 0 walks. Gleason behind him was nails. Maddox Webb was nails. And, Elliott, I keep waiting for him to kind of go out and have this dominant kind of 7 innings shutout start. He threw 6 of 3 runs. I don't really feel too bad about that. Obviously, Ole Miss had that late push with the Foley home run. Tristan Becerra didn't have a hit all weekend. I know that he kind of had some balls that were hit hard, but he didn't have a hit all entire. I thought we've talked about it with Jake Brown about when Jake Brown kind of suffers and scoffs if LSU is going to have enough talent behind him. It seems like when Becerra scoffs, 5 runs in 3 games is not very good. Obviously, Mississippi State has really good Saturday and Sunday guys, but again, they just have to be better. But for Mississippi State, obviously, they're still working out this lineup thing. I know that I read the stat on Thursday. Well, guess what? They rolled out 3 different lineups too as well, and they're pinch hitters. Sean James had the pinch hit on Saturday. Kevin Milkowski, who again has been catching primarily every day, he gets a pinch hit on Sunday and hits a home run. So, Brian O'Connor just has an unbelievable feel for this team. This is the thing that you always kind of worry about with these kind of portal teams that have a ton of guys is, if there's going to be kind of animosity for other guys that can't play, or if there's going to be pressure for the guys that are playing. That really hasn't been the case at all with Mississippi State. It feels like every single person that they kind of slide in there hits 370 on the graphic. This is the best hitting team that I think Mississippi State's had in the last 10 years. And they've had, legit big leaguers come through Mississippi State. So I think just, I said the series, I don't really know how Texas loses a series. Mississippi State's another one where if they're hot, there's not a team in the country that can beat them. They go 9 deep, and all these hitting first teams like Vanderbilt, like Texas A&M, like LSU to some extent, they don't really have Sunday guys. And Mississippi State has that luxury behind them. They have a really, really good Saturday guy. Obviously, once they get their Friday guy. But, Duke Stone on Sunday, 6 innings, 1 earned run, 7 walks, 8 strikeouts. Again, he was pitching in and out of danger. And then Mississippi State, Ace Reese just kind of got on him first. I know that there were probably a ton of Ole Miss fans that were late getting to that game that were students that when Ace Reese homered, they immediately kind of turned and walked away. Jacob Parker, who was a freshman of the week snub, in my opinion. I know that it went out to the A&M Jariah Wilson. But, Parker's in the conversation, I think, for SEC Player of the Year. Again, we had it last year with Curiel, Bell, and Volantis. This year it's Parker, Partita, and Wilson. Just three phenomenally talented freshmen. Week for me, Mississippi State did what they were supposed to. Like every year when the schedule comes out with Ole Miss, Mississippi State can kind of chalk up 3 wins. They didn't overlook Ole Miss, so that's the thing for me. I feel like it's an A weekend, but I feel like there's a little bit more in the tank. And then for Ole Miss, F. You get swept at home, you get swept against a rival. There's plenty of time for them to turn it around. But this is the Mississippi State, this is the Ole Miss that we saw in Houston. This is the Ole Miss that we saw at the Texas series. It's going to be really interesting to see kind of where they go from here because they have a ton of guys. Like I said, Becetta's not going to go hitless on every single weekend. They still have Hunter Elliott on Friday. So, this team's got to quickly figure stuff out or they could be looking up and it's just, a missed opportunity. Obviously, I think that they're still a tournament team. They feel like a 2. Mississippi State just felt like a class above Ole Miss in every sense of the word. Let's move on to, again, another sweep. Actually, hold on. Let's go ahead and do the commercial as with Nick. I'm usually checking, but I realize that we're at the halfway point. So let's go ahead and run that
Before we get
commercial.
back to the action, we've got to tell you about the best gear in college sports. The place to go is Home Field Apparel. Check out the Diamond Classics collection. High-quality throwback jerseys for your favorite team. From the Arkansas Razorbacks to the Vanderbilt Commodores, Home Field has you covered. Home Field's the only apparel partner of College Baseball Central. Gear up for game day by visiting homefieldapparel.com.
Thank you to our sponsors, Home Field. Obviously, that they have a great diamond collection that's out there. I have a Texas A&M one. I have a few other ones. I have a Vandy one. They're all super, super comfortable. I always get a ton of compliments when I wear them around. But let's get back into the action. The South Carolina Gamecocks under Monty Lee went over to Foley. I predicted a sweep in this one, but I should say that South Carolina was a little bit more competitive than I thought. I thought that they pitched really, really well. For a team like South Carolina, I feel, and I said this today, that Founders is on my list when South Carolina gets good again. It just feels like the relic of a bygone era. We're now a week into the Monty Lee tenure. Obviously, the vibes are a little bit different, but 5-2, 3-1, yesterday 9-7, but that was a lot closer of a game as South Carolina kind of blew it before they ran out of gas. I thought the interesting thing was South Carolina was the first team to really kind of make Georgia play a different style. Obviously, Foley really hasn't kind of lived up to the billing as this is Georgia's SEC games at Foley. 4 runs, 8 runs, 5 runs, 3 runs, 9 runs. So again, they've scored either 5 or under 5 in more than half of those games. Georgia, I still feel really, really good about. The pitching, I think, was phenomenal. So it's weird that as bad as the hitting was this weekend, quote unquote, the pitching really kind of turned it up a notch. Obviously, South Carolina isn't the deepest lineup, so really kind of take it with a little bit of a grain of salt. But, for Georgia's guys like Dylan Vigil, who, again, obviously got chased early due to ineffectiveness, and Matt Scott, too, as well. I think for me, how well they attacked the zone, because that was always kind of the issue at at Stanford, is just they didn't really attack the zone. Volchko, again, he pitched into the 7th inning. Only had 4 walks, 2 runs allowed. Bird behind him was absolutely nails. Here's the part that's weird for me is this is now, what is this, a third of their last 6 games. They've had a starter chased extremely, extremely early. And ultimately, it really doesn't matter. They just have so much, quote unquote, starter depth that if a starter gets, chased in the 2nd or chased in the 3rd, they can have somebody behind them go out and absolutely shove. They have enough bullpen depth behind them. Like, again, Dylan Vigil, 4 walks, 1 run, he recorded 1 out, run. Paul Farley goes 4 2/3. Matt Scott goes 4 innings. Scott's a guy I think that should probably find his way into the rotation sooner rather than later. And Ishikawa gets chased after the 1st inning. And then Caden Aoki goes in, absolutely shoves innings. And that's starter type material. So that's 3 quote unquote starts that you got from Georgia, from guys that weren't starters. I don't think there's any team in the country that has the luxury that Georgia has. Obviously, the bats have got to be a little bit better. But I should say this. South Carolina is kind of turning into what Missouri was last year, where you really can like mess around and still beat them. And that was what it felt like. Was it just Georgia couldn't get up for the series? They were kind of reading a little bit of their press headlines, if you will, after that A&M series. If you're Georgia, you're glad that you got this kind of lull out of your system, as you go Mississippi State, Florida, Arkansas, Ole Miss. It's kind of a gauntlet there again, but it's a gauntlet in the SEC. So just take your 3 wins, move on. Again, they sit at 7-2 in the SEC. I believe that's tied for first. Obviously, you're only chasing 6 more wins to get into the tournament. Obviously, this team has a ton of more ambitions than to just simply get into the tournament. Grades for me, Georgia gets a C just because you're supposed to kind of sweep South Carolina. Like I gave Arkansas a C- despite winning. I dropped them in the polls for losing a game to South Carolina. For South Carolina, I'm never going to give a team that swept anything, but I mean, they were competitive in all those games. They've been competitive the last 2 weeks. I know that the results, much like Missouri, haven't really shown, but I feel really, really good about them going forward from like a competitive standpoint. They're not giving up. That was the one thing that Mainieri, I felt like they kind of gave up. Let's move on to the Iron Bowl series, if you will. The Alabama Crimson Tide hosted the Auburn Tigers. Alabama obviously swept them 11-1, 3-2 with the walk-off from Fowler on Saturday. And then Sunday it was a pitcher's duel 3-1. This is Auburn's now 5th straight SEC loss. I think this is about as close as you can get to hitting that panic button if you're the Auburn Tigers. They are making high quality at bats. They do not have the power numbers that they had last year or in years past. Obviously, I mean, think about this. Since they went up since that Saturday game, they just have really not been competitive at all. Obviously, they faced Philantis, but I mean, 5-0, 11-1, 3-2, 3-1. Missouri, they scored four runs and 2 runs. Like, this is a bad hitting team. This is a team that really kind of struggles to find runs. I mean, obviously, Eric Guerra had that double in the first, and then from there, I mean, they didn't score the rest of the game. They scored in the first inning, but outside of it, I mean, they got to take better at bat. Got to be more desperate to score runs. For me, I mean, there's like 7 or 8 guys for Alabama that I could sit here and say, oh yeah, like they had a monster weekend. Brady Neal just continues to impress. Torres had a monster Friday night. The captain, John Lim, had really, really high quality weekend as he kind of gets going. Obviously, his numbers start with a 1. So if they can get him going, for as good as Alabama has been, they will be a dangerous, dangerous team if they can start to get stuff out of him and Plattner. Justin LeBron just continues to impress, but it's always a good sign for me when I'm watching Alabama on TV, because I watched that game Saturday and I watched that game Sunday, that Justin LeBron wasn't stealing headlines. Like for me, Saturday it was Bryce Fowler. I mean, he had 3 diving plays late in the game. He comes up and gets the walk-off home run, or the walk-off hit. Not the walk-off. Did he get the walk-off hit? I know he was on base. Either it was on base. Let me double check. No, it was him. Yeah, he comes up. He steals just when you think Auburn's kind of chipping away and getting back in it. In the 8th and 9th inning, he has phenomenal diving catches. And one of them I thought was like a huge risk that I kind of like held my breath on. But again, I really shouldn't have that much stuff because Fowler was just tremendous out in center field. He had a press conference quote, this is a guy that was drafted last year. And he said, this is the reason that I come back is for games like this. And Alabama just continues to just win games. I mean, they've won 6 SEC series in a row. Obviously, Kentucky was up at KPP, but Kentucky's looked kind of decent outside of that. Florida went into Arkansas, like we just talked about. I mean, this is a good Alabama team. They get Faye. They get Adams behind him. Adams was really, really great pitching into the 7th inning. And then Miles Upchurch saving that bullpen. Bobby Alcock has been really, really good too at times as well. It'll be interesting to see kind of how Alabama does it. But, I mean, they have a luxury of Faye and Adams are going to go out there and pitch deep into these games. This is now 2 straight weeks. I think that Alabama is as good as Faye and Adams are. Obviously, they hit really, really well. Obviously, they do a lot of things. It's an emotional team. but I think that this team will go as far as those two kind of take them, which lucky for them, they're a good team. I don't think Alabama's peaking either. I know that in years past they've peaked maybe a little bit too early. But I have Alabama extremely high. I had Alabama extremely high last year, so I'm a little bit gun shy, if you will, about putting them in the top 10 and then kind of turning around. But for me, let me see where Alabama's at in a month. I think that they're one of the best teams in the SEC, but if they look up and, May 1st, they're within 2-3 games of first place, right on the doorstep of hosting. I'll get to see Alabama in 2 weeks when I go out there for that series on the 12th. So I'm excited to kind of see them in person. I'm excited to kind of see the Rangers in person. But for me, I mean, Alabama, this is an A+ weekend in every sense of the word. And I hate to keep giving out Fs. I'll go D- because they were in 2 of those games, Saturday and Sunday. But I mean, Auburn really does have to just learn how to hit and learn how to have competitive at bats. I mean, on paper, they should be one of the best hitting teams in the SEC. And they just have not lived up to that billing in any sense of the word in SEC play. Let's move on to the Texas A&M Aggies. They got the revenge on the Missouri Tigers. The bats were alive all weekend for Texas A&M. They scored double-digit runs in all 3 games. Let's start with kind of the positives before I kind of rip into the pitching. 11-9, 14-6, 14-3. Aiden Sims on Sunday has been a really, really nice surprise for them. Because you may recall, he wasn't actually even supposed to be in there. It was just due to injuries. And because I believe what I had heard is that he had lost the Sunday role. But I'm really intrigued to kind of see him. I've seen a lot of A&M fans call for him to move up and Weston Moss gets moved down. I actually disagree. Why chase Saturday at the expense of Sunday? Why risk speeding up Aiden Sims when he's pitching great on Sunday? And Saturday and Sunday truly do count the exact same, if you will. Friday night, Shane's really, really good. He really, really wasn't. It's 11 straight hits, obviously punctuated by that grand slam. They were up 11-1 before they kind of chipped. The bullpen was extremely, extremely shaky at times. Like Vargas really wasn't good. Darden wasn't very good. But they got a fresh corn who was absolutely nails. Lyons gets him an out too as well. So the team really kind of grow up that night, in my opinion. Obviously, Hakopian had the fielder's choice that made that 2 runs feel a lot better. But A&M didn't have a hit from the 5th to the 8th inning, I believe. And they survived that. They really did kind of not fall apart, as they really did make Missouri work for just about every single thing. For Shane Sadeo, it was really, really good for 4 innings, and then it was really, really bad for the last 2. So it'll be really interesting to see what they kind of do with him. But the thing for me, too, is once A&M got into that bullpen, I know this has kind of been their Achilles heel, is they'll chase a starter, and then it'll take him a few to kind of get there. Isaiah Salas, 1 out, 3 runs allowed. Luke Fricker, 2 outs, 3 runs allowed. Obviously, Sobel threw a little bit better behind him, but they really did attack every single arm that came through. Saturday, obviously, Weston Moss had that really kind of weird PFP, but outside of that, I thought he pitched fine. It's really easy to pitch when you have a 7-run 3rd inning and then a 2-run 4th. Like, I know that he kind of gave up those 3 runs that got him chased, but again, Lyons was really good behind him and was really good behind him. Cunningham was a really, really big get out of the portal last year in 2025, actually summer of 2024. Obviously, he really hasn't kind of lived up to that billing, but he was Washington's Friday guy at numerous times when he was at Washington. It follows Kelly to Texas A&M. He threw 3 1/3 innings, threw 51 pitches. I thought he pitched really, really well. No walks for either of the bullpen guys, which I think is a big one. They chased Brady Kellenbrink, who has been one of, I think, the best pitchers in the SEC up to this point. And again, what did they do when they chased Kellenbrink? Kyler Gonzalez comes in. They give up 4 runs to him. So, I mean, it was a phenomenal effort. And then on Sunday, you get that run rule. Jake Durer has that kind of late home run. And it's weird because when I was following along with the game on Twitter, obviously Caden Sorrell jumped out to an 11-0 game. Then Wada and Duran homer, so it's 11-3, and it's still like a big lead. But I felt like a lot of A&M fans were kind of doom and gloom, if you will. And then Jake Durer homers, and you're like, okay, like A&M's bullpen really doesn't have to pitch anymore. But again, Vargas didn't give up a run. Darden didn't give up a run. That's the thing about Ethan Darden. I think that's the one thing is if A&M can kind of get Darden going, it's really not terrible. For as doom and gloom as everybody has been about this pitching staff and this rotation, if you will, and the bullpen, like there's a lot of teams in the SEC that really don't have bullpens. I mean, these scores on Sunday were absolutely bonkers, like if you really think about it. Let me pull them up here so I can read them off because we talked a ton. Read them off here. And again, it's weird. And they hit like it. I mean, it's a deep lineup. Blake Binderup comes off the bench. Jariah Wilson comes off bench and just immediately kind of hits. So I mean, it really is a fight at the bat rack. They have a ton of depth. So if some of these guys kind of start to slumping, they can get in and pinch hit. I think it's really not that big of a deal. But here's the SEC. We'll talk about Vanderbilt, Tennessee next. 15-16, Georgia 9-7, Texas A&M 14-3, Kentucky 17-10, Mississippi State 7-1. So it's not like these are pitchers' duels. So I mean, for his doom and his, I think this A&M team is still extremely, extremely underrated. They hit, I think, at an alarming rate in a good way. They have one good bullpen arm, which again, as long as they don't overtax it and some of these starters can kind of pitch in. I talked about it last week about how if you're A&M, you can live with a guy going 6-5 innings and giving up runs, which is kind of what they did with Sadeo. And that was why I think that there wasn't such a quick trigger is one, there was a big lead. And then two, like you're really just chasing outs with how this lineup kind of goes. That's 4 straight games for Texas A&M in the win column. They'll get Vandy this weekend. But for Missouri, they sit at 1-8 in the SEC. Obviously, it's only one win better than they were at this point last year, but I think that they're worlds ahead. I think this team's got to learn how to win in a way. And once they learn how to win, I'm not going to say they're going to be dangerous, but I think that they're going to be a lot more competitive than they showed this weekend. The starting pitching, I mean, they ran into a buzzsaw on Friday and Saturday. And I know that they still have some Sunday stuff that they got to figure out at the back end as Tennessee and Auburn. They ran out of gas down the stretch. It just felt like those Sunday guys had to pitch a lot earlier with Texas A&M. And then for Texas A&M, just keep it rolling. Don't get too high. You know, it's not like that's what I feel about this team is, I mean, the vibes, keep the vibes high, keep them going. Don't get too high, don't get too low. You got Vanderbilt coming in this weekend who's extremely, extremely hot, which kind of transitions us into them. The Vanderbilt Commodores hosted the Tennessee Volunteers. It was a clean sweep of the Vols, which is a little bit kind of weird because last time Tennessee was there, they took over the it was a weird series for me because obviously the headliner is that Saturday game where they pitched 15 innings and then the bullpen was absolutely lights out. I thought Tennessee had the better bullpen than Vandy. I thought Tennessee, all they had to do was wait him out. But 3-2 Friday with Fennell shoving the way that he did, 6-5 Saturday. And then Sunday just goes off the rails for two teams that immediately run out of pitching, 16-15. Fennell was phenomenal, which looking back, I think really kind of played in their hand. He threw 7 1/3. Tennessee had to go with Tegan Coons, who got through 4 innings. And I mean, Tennessee played, I think, fine. They just found ways to lose games. I mean, they got swept, and then the run differential was 4 games. Drew Beam had an interesting tweet about how you don't want to freak out if you're Tennessee fans. I think that, but I've been saying all along that this team has to make it as easy of a job from decision-wise of Josh Elander. And I'm not going to sit here and say that Josh Elander was outcoached. I don't think that that's the case in any way, shape, or form. But, I mean, you have the pitching advantage Saturday, and you have the pitching advantage on Sunday. You chase Wyatt and Dew, and then you just, Landon Mack was really good until he wasn't. Cam Appenzeller was extremely, extremely good. I wonder if he'll start to kind of get some of those Sunday rolls, if you will. Obviously, they're still dealing with a little bit of a sickness. But if you're Tennessee, don't hit the panic button yet. They're 3-6 in the SEC. Florida was 0-9. A&M was 0-9. There's still plenty of time. There's still plenty of talent. But they need to make some of this stuff easier on Josh Elander. Obviously, Blaine Brown, Reese Chapman. I thought that was kind of interesting with Garrett Wright playing center field. Grimmer DHing, so no Jay Abernathy. It'll be interesting to kind of see what they do. I think that there's still a few things that they got to figure out. From a hitting standpoint, I don't think they have the firepower, but again, they have the pitching. I mean, they get Blanco on Sunday. This is a team that I feel really, really good about. And then for Vanderbilt, I can be honest, I have no read on them. I thought that they were absolutely terrible. I thought they were the worst team in the SEC. And then they turn around and take 2 of 3 from LSU. They sweep Tennessee. I mean, that's unheard of, if you will, that they're 5-1 against Mississippi State and LSU. They get A&M. They get A&M on the road. They get OU on the road. They get KPP. They get Texas at home. I mean, it'll be an interesting kind of few weeks for the Vanderbilt Commodores. They still got to figure out that Sunday pitching. Wyatt Nadeau is quickly kind of growing up right in front of our eyes as a Saturday guy. I think he's a bona fide ace. But which Vanderbilt are we going to see? Are we going to see the one that kind of went through these ebbs and flows, that was home run reliant, that can't win on Sunday? Or are we going to see the one that kind of used all their magic this weekend? I don't really know. That is all 8 of the SEC series. Nick will be back Thursday night as we'll get some of those Thursday night games. Let me see who we are rolling with this Thursday, April 4th. April's kind of like the October of college football. This is when you go through it. It's moving day. I think we're going to find a lot about these teams in the next 3 weeks. It is Easter this weekend. So I think there's a ton of Thursday games. So, Nick, we might have to adjust our show as we get them pulled up. Let me see here as we kind of close it out. Load. Scroll. Yeah, there's a lot. We are going to get 6 SEC games. That's Georgia, Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, Texas A&M, Ole Miss and Florida, Texas, South Carolina, Arkansas, and Auburn, followed by Alabama and Oklahoma. So it's going to be a phenomenal week. We might record Wednesday, but we'll get all that stuff in. We'll get all those graphics out to you. That is all that we have time for here as we keep it under an hour. We have the Rydell Report coming up right after this at 7 o'clock. It's great college baseball. It was a phenomenal week in the SEC. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in.